remember growing up here, I had we had a staircase, and underneath the staircase I used to sell toys to my little sister that I would steal from her. So I would steal the toys and sell them back to her. And my first toy that I ever bought was here at Rite Aid, and it was a T-Rex. It was a Jurassic Park T-Rex. I never really got into Star Wars. It wasn't, I don't know, I saw it with my dad and in the theaters when it came out, at least like the remake version, like the first one they did with the CGI. I think I saw a little bit of the first ones. I don't really remember it. They didn't have as much of an impact on me as Jurassic Park. The first Jurassic Park was probably the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. The scenes all feel like iconic to me. And I got to talking about movies today with someone. And there's almost this thing where it's like, it's not cool to be bitter or upset or critical of a movie. You know, if it's like, oh, hey, did you see the new Jurassic Park? I was like, yeah, it was really cool. But then in the inside, you're like, yeah, it's so fucking dumb. Like, it's just funny to think about. I feel like they don't make the toy like they used to. Like the Jurassic Park toys at Walmart are, interestingly enough, relatively the same price, which is fascinating to me because with inflation, you know, I bought it and it was $18, and it was it was mostly change. I think my mom helped me out a little bit, and I was really grateful. And even 33 years later, 35 years later, the price is the same. And the toys, though, are not as high quality. The first T-Rex was like really, really cool looking. And then they had another one that came out that was red. That was so fucking cool. And I wish I would have got that one. And then there was one that came out a couple of years later that my dad ended up getting me, and it was like really poorly made. It had like a whole, like a massive mouth you could stick the toy in and then pull it out from the stomach. Like the throat was big enough to eat a toy. But the problem with this is that it was really cheaply made. And I remember that even as a kid. I remember the toy was like, wow, this is an epic toy. Like, it's like really well made. And those are memories that impact me. Like somewhere along the line, people at you know, who were putting the toys together, and whoever was ever doing that, made choices, and those choices impacted me to believe. Like I had a toy when I was in Montana, and I don't remember when my dad bought me it, but you know, that was a really hard time for me growing up. And having an amazing toy, probably I'd look back as like, wow, you know, like it would change the feeling in my body. It'd be like nicer. Versus this other toy that they made is like not that great. Which brings up two things for me. One is the idea that we want to have a better emotional experience than something that we experienced. We want to be able to look back at something and feel differently about it or feel better about it. And then another one is the complexity of the situations that we have taking place in the world, and how to make it so that Walmart can make things that are biodegradable, can make things that are really well made, and can make things that are you know, don't have toxins in them. And also, reduce the amount of shipping that we're doing, receiving over from overseas, so that we can make more, have more independence and reduce our carbon footprint. These seem like desirable things, and that we should structure our society around the desirable aspects. And the desirable aspects are going to be impacted by the financial parts, because financially, maybe it makes more sense to buy really cheap stuff from China and then sell it here in the United States and make it, in a way that is not as safe for kids to even hold. And I don't really know what toys and how they're made, but these plastics are quite dangerous. Put a lot of things in there, and we're not necessarily taking the time for the FDA to reevaluate or evaluate even the pharmaceutical industry. So just exactly what does it look like in other areas? I like many have lost trust in the regulatory bodies, and boy oh boy does it make sense when you have people like Trump deregulating around the country and saying that we need a small government. But what happens with that is they go for regulations. Okay, they deregulate, which means that industry and businesses get to quote unquote thrive. No, they get to kill you. They get to, instead of actually picking the thing that's safe, they pick the thing that's not safe because it's cheaper. And then you scream, yay, smaller government, because no one's regulating it. It's crazy. It's not right. We need regulations. I think a lot of a man by the name of David Rubin, and there was a YouTube channel that roasted him, and he was on Rogan. One of the things I like about Joe, and I haven't listened to him recently, but let's just say 5 years ago, was that he would not entertain, or at least when I used to listen to him, he would not entertain the idea that someone would put forward if they were grifting. He would really call him out on it. And one of the things he just didn't want to deal with is people kind of fronting an idea even though they didn't really actually believe it. And I feel like that happens on the Republican Party in a lot of different areas. It happens in climate change, and it also with Candace Owens. When she was on Rogan, she embarrassed herself to the moon, and you could tell that she was basically co-opting the view of the party. And maybe she believed it to some degree, but it's very toxic that we have to structure our ideas this way in terms of tribalism. And our media fosters it. This is the system that is created. No, this is the media landscape that's created. And so when someone tells me they're a Republican or someone tells me they're a Democrat, it's like, a lot of these ideas, we don't, unless you have 100 books under your belt that are, basically from the foundation of the parties and understand how that stuff goes and how it went, I'm probably not going to take a lot of seriousness into what you say, because you're not as educated as someone else I would want to listen to. And I don't know difference between left and right, so I can't really take you too seriously. But I'll listen, and I'm more likely to listen based on specific ideas, specific things, not generalizations like, oh, I saw it in the news, or, oh, this person is this. What's the specific policy thing that you're interested in that you can get on a little expert wagon on? And that's what I think we need to start doing instead of being so politically dogmatized. It's like, okay, pick a topic. You're really into gun rights. Okay, read every book you can that disagrees with what you believe in. Find the books that you disagree with and see how you make it through. See what kind of idea. Get the landscape without the bias, right? Like if you're angry about your politics, that means you're totally biased, and you're probably doing things that maybe you should reconsider in a sense. It's not so wise to get angry about politics, because it proves that you don't necessarily know where you're coming from. You're too attached to the outcome. The political view you have is probably only possible in some really rigid possibility. It's probably fairy tale. It's not going to happen most likely, or if it does, it's going to happen under certain contexts and pretenses, maybe even only in certain areas, or in certain, even only helping certain demographics of people because that's how the policy comes through. Or maybe it goes through and then it gets rejected because something happened at the Supreme Court. Or maybe it gets co-opted and the idea gets taken from us and then put in some implemented in another place of the world, and you don't even know about it. Or maybe it already happened and then people found out that it didn't work. Or maybe it did happen and people found out that it cost too much money, so we have to find a different way. It's all about the outline of the idea. It's all about the context that we're operating in and the foundation that we're operating from. And the reason why I talk about emotional healing so much, which is specifically in this context so far, in the beginning stages, at least in some of them, we're talking about feeling our trigger and getting into the fear and the emotions under it so that we're feeling our grief and working ourselves out and being honest and true about ourselves and not lying to ourselves. And letting go of the control that we need to have over other people so we can feel safer. We need to allow ourselves to feel the fear and the grief of what it looks like to not do that. Because then your politics are going to be changed. Right now I see a lot of politics that are affected by the emotional patterns that people have from their youth. Which means that when, XYZ parent left or abused in some way, however you want to characterize the abuse, you're left with a situation where someone is having to cope with the abuse. The child was 6 or 7 or 8 years old, or 4 or 2 or whatever it was, and they had to develop a strategy in order to avoid that. Meaning, when mama leaves, I'm going to say, fuck you, no, I'm right. And then, they get triggered in their 40 and they're doing the same thing, and it's like, I can't be with you anymore. Like, you're delusional. You're not right in this situation. Like, why are you still like this? And they're like, no, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, that's why you feel into the anger, because it trips the wire and you get launched into the emotional pattern. You see, the frustration as well. Just work with what you can access. And so then we have clearer ideas about our politics, because you're going to be like, oh yeah, no, I feel that way too. No, he's wrong. Like, your ideas about politics are going to line up with your emotional state. People get really, really violent and really, really angry because of their childhood trauma. And it's just the media that provokes it. Like, there's a bunch of people angry with their parents, quite literally. I'm not even being facetious or exaggerating. That's what it is. And so when people are protesting, or you have Antifa versus this group versus that group, and it's just some hardcore militant craziness, and it's like, dude, like, you're not doing this in the way that's appropriate for our society, for civilized society, number one. Number two, they're mischaracterizing your ideas and your views around the world. Number three, you're destroying our culture. Number four, they're using it against you. You have to put down your weapons. You have to stop fighting like this. They're going to use it to take more control, which is exactly what Trump did. It's almost like it's an illusion, it's almost like, let's go do this and make sure we make a difference. We're angry, stay angry, we're in our power and our control, we'll make a difference. And then all of a sudden they just, they flick you off the board. No one knows who you are and no one remembers you because you did some really, kind of, maybe, many of you might feel like your heart is in the right place. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's like, what, we really need to stop this horrible stuff, and you're so angry about it. But what you don't see is the anger is reflective of something else a lot of the time. And if you're really upset about injustice, it often has to do with the injustice you experienced as a child. And if you feel like you need to save the world, or you have some kind of issue around that, like I used to, and maybe still do in some sense, I'm working through it, it's something to be admired? No. It's a vanity. Like, look how big the universe is. Look how many animals are on the planet. Like, look how much amazing things we can do. And meanwhile, I see that someone ran over someone else with a Ford, a truck or Ford Mustang. You guys insane? What the fuck are you doing with your life? You're absolutely fucking insane. You're dogmatizing yourself on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, and you're becoming a fucking radical. Meanwhile, you haven't picked up a book since you were fucking 2 years old, and it had pop-ups in it. You need to get real. You need to heal your anger. And only then will you actually have a clear and honest view. Otherwise, you're not being honest with yourself. And you can't see how to be honest with yourself because you think you're being honest with yourself in your politics, and what you get is the seduction. You get the seduction of feeling seduced because you feel like you're right, you feel like you're powerful, and you feel like you're better than other people, which is the seduction of anger. And you're going to get very clear about that because you're going to feel into the grief underneath the anger, and then you're going to slip back into the anger, and you're going to notice what's seducing you into it. And it's going to educate you. And then you can change. And then you won't be such a stupid fucking monkey anymore. Then you'll be a brilliant one.